very much. Okay, right, we are recording, we are live. I'm going to let people in from the waiting room in just a second. There's loads of people that should be here that don't look like they're here, but we'll just deal with it as it comes along. We'll probably start in about 5 minutes properly, but I'm going to let people in. And before we do, I just want to say, don't worry if things go wrong. Things do go wrong. If you get kicked out, use the same link to come back in, and I'll see you in the waiting room and I'll let you back in, so don't worry about that. If I get kicked out, if my internet goes off, I'll use the same link as well, so it'll just be in the same place and just rejoin. And the most important thing is that you enjoy the evening and celebrate it, because it's a really big thing to be published in a magazine, and you all deserve to have a little pat on the back and a little celebration. So okay, let's let people in. Is everyone happy?
Yes, thank you. Thanks ever so much, Wendy. It'll be great.
Quite welcome. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. Welcome.
Hi, Wendy.
Hello. Hi. Hi. I'm just going to check my emails to make sure no one's trying to get hold of me. Everything. This is nice. It's nice to see you all.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get started in just a second. I'm just going to give it a minute to let any stragglers get in. The thing about Zoom is it's brilliant in a lot of ways, but this part of it is always just a bit silent. Everyone's in their little boxes. Whereas if you were in a live event, everyone would be in the audience and just chatting to each other, wouldn't they? Yeah. I do miss that about live events, but this is really the easiest way to make it accessible for most people. Oh, look, we've got 2 pages of people. That's what we like to see. That's what we like to see. Okay. Well, I am going to apologise first of all, because unfortunately, poor Steve's had to attend to a family emergency, so it is just me in my role as Spelt founder and editor. So I apologise in advance if things go a little bit wrong, or if things are a little bit slow, or any of those things, because Steve was going to be doing the screen sharing, and I was going to do most of the introductions, apart from the difficult to pronounce names. So it's just me, and I'm doing all of the things tonight. I am like a brilliant spelt octopus tonight, and I hope that you're going to enjoy it. We're going to have a lot of fun. This is how it's going to go. I'm going to introduce the first guest in a minute, first guest reader. We're going to have some of the contributors reading, and then we've got fantastic Maggie Harris, and then we've got a little tiny break so you can all refill your glasses. And then we've got some more contributors in the second half, and we're going to finish with lovely Caleb Parkin, who's going to read from his 9 Arches Press collection. Okay, what I'm going to ask you to do is mute yourselves once we get started, but you do have in your reactions
the 3rd edition launch party.
Are you there, Kate? Is that you? Is that you I can hear?
Yeah, it should be on mute, sorry.
No, you're all right. You do have a little button at the bottom of your screen that has reactions in it, so if you want to virtually clap, you can. And don't forget, we have the chat function as well, so you can post any comments in there as we're going along, and that's always really nice for the readers, because then after they've got through the anxiety of actually getting their reading out of the way, they can go and see everybody applauding them and saying nice things about them. So do say nice things about them. Okay, right. Okay. All right. Just give it a couple of seconds more, because I can see people still joining. we do have a Black Friday offer on today as well. So if you were wanting to buy another copy of the magazine or a copy of the magazine, we have issues 2 and 3 for just £11, including postage, one day only. So get in quickly. Okay. Here we are. People are starting to chat in the chat room, which is brilliant. Okay, so thank you for coming to the launch of Spelt 3, our autumn issue, which we are slightly late getting out, but this is because we both work full-time and we have to fit Spelt around our work. So I feel particularly happy to have got this issue out because it is absolutely beautiful. I mean, look at it. Look at it. Isn't it gorgeous? Full colour. Lots of space for the poems, lovely interviews, a little prompt. It's just, I couldn't have asked for more. And Steve's done such a good job on the design of it. It looks beautiful. So I'm really happy with that. And it's really nice to have so many people here, so many people reading tonight. It's just going to be such a lovely, lovely evening. We might as well make a start, haven't we? So let's start then. Now I'm going to start with first reader tonight is going to be Tim Relf. Tim, are you there? Are you ready? Where are you, Tim? Oh, there.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, hello. If everyone else except Tim and myself, obviously, can mute themselves, that would be fantastic. Is my mic going a bit funny? I sound like a Dalek. Is that just to myself? Oh, I just sound like a Dalek to myself. How disappointing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, the other thing that I'm going to do that I should explain is I'm going to screen share the poems as the poets, as the readers are reading them. This is so that we can make it a little bit more accessible. Spelt, as you know, is run on a shoestring. So this is the best we can do with what we've got at the minute until we build a little bit more of a profile. If you did want to change your settings, once I share the screen, here we go. You should be able to see that now. I think on your screen, I think there's a divide and you can move that divide across. I'm not entirely sure. This is something that Kim Moore told me when I was at one of her launches. And now because I'm sharing it, I can't actually see the screen as it would be, but I think it has a line on it that you can move. So if you don't want to see the words, if you want to see more of the poet, you can move it across or the other way. Okay, so let me introduce Tim. Let me just smallen that a little bit. No, I don't want to do that. I want to do, no, don't want to do that. I want to do that. Steve, come back. All right, so Tim, I'm going to read the introductions from the magazine. So apologies if you've changed them or if you've become world renowned in the time between publication of the poem and now. Leicester-based Tim Relf won second prize in the 2021 McClellan Poetry Prize and has been longlisted in a host of 2021 competitions, including the Live Canon International Poetry Competition, AUB's International Poetry Prize, the Plough Poetry Prize, and Mono Poetry Competition. His work has appeared in the Rialto, Ink, Sweat and Tears, and Snakeskin. His novel, What She Left, was published by Penguin. And Tim also ran a fantastic workshop for us on pitching to magazines, and it was fantastic. We had so much feedback. So I was absolutely delighted when Tim sent a poem into the magazine and I saw it and I thought, wow, he can just do everything. He'd turn his hand to anything. So I'm going to hand you over now to Tim, who is going to read his fantastic poem. There you go, Tim.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Firstly, huge congratulations to Wendy and Steve on this object of absolute beauty. It's so nice to see after just 3 issues, the sort of the buzz that's building around Spelt, and as a writer, it's so lovely to be in among such wonderful companies. So, congratulations. So this poem is called The Burrowers. The Burrowers. I once woke, my face wedged into a rabbit hole. Soil, grass, a field, fields, a faraway cottage. I stood, wobbled, stumbled back to the 5 a.m. end of a party. I remember this as a young man apologises for having overdone it at a dinner party I hosted last night. He'd gone out for a smoke and bang, lights out. We'd carried him in and put him to bed on the sofa at 9 p.m. Sorry, he says, shaking. Seriously, man, I'm sorry. I'm such a dick sometimes. Tears I can see are coming. Nothing bad happened, I reassure him, remembering this reaction a handful of times. There's a mark on his cheek, mud or grass. His face had been against the lawn when we hauled him up, like he was trying to get into the ground. I woke up once in a rabbit warren once, I tell him, like an actual rabbit warren in a field. Sparko I was, covered in rabbit crap, holes everywhere. He wipes his cheek, smiles the ghost of last night's smile. I tell him I'll put the kettle on and tea, he says, tea would be good. I don't mention I spent years on repeat, trying to dig clear of myself and the earthy, bad taste I left in my own mouth. No, I won't mention all the other times it was lights out. Just that once, waking up in the warren, in the dew-clung dirt, with shit on my shirt and soil under my nails.
Fantastic, thank you, Tim, and beautifully read as well. Absolutely lovely. I'm just so pleased to have that in the magazine. It's just a lovely, lovely poem. Now then, next up, I've got Debra Morgan. Deborah, are you here somewhere? Where are you?
Here I am.
There she is. Oh, brilliant. Didn't see you when you came in. Excellent. Okay, so Deborah, I know Deborah because she's been on a couple of my courses before. So when she sent some work in, I was just absolutely delighted because lots and lots of people send work in to me and to us. And I see lots of poems from people that I work with. And it's always really disappointing if I can't put those poems into the magazine, because then I have to tell them that I can't put them in the magazine. And it's really horrible for them. It's really horrible sending out rejections of poems and creative non-fiction. It's a really hard part of the job. So when I saw Deborah's work and I knew how much it meant to her and I knew what a good poem it was, I was absolutely delighted. And it's always nice as well when someone's at the beginning of their career and just sort of starting out and getting to grips with poetry and wanting to get published. It's really nice to be able to provide that platform for them. So I'm going to introduce Deborah now. Debra Morgan lives in Liverpool and left primary school teaching to complete an MA in creative writing at LJMU. Her first novel, Disappearing Home, was published by Tyndall Street Press. She's currently working on her first book of poetry and has had 10 poems shortlisted for the Bridport Prize. Can you believe that? That's an amazing achievement. She loves to take photographs of Liverpool and dabbles in sketching. She is a freelance teacher of creative writing. And you can follow her on Facebook, and every day she posts a different picture of Liverpool and they are just brilliant. So I'm going to share this screen again now. And I'll let Deborah read her beautiful poem. Off you go, Deb.
Oh, thanks, Wendy. And I'm just echoing Tim. I'm thrilled to be in the magazine and with everybody who's in it. The writing is incredible. This poem is about my friend. When I was 12, she was my best friend and she hated wearing her glasses. And she was the only friend I've ever known whose father gave her a kettle to take back to a shop because it wasn't working, and she ended up getting arrested. But her dad didn't only give her the kettle, he gave her money to put a bet on. And when I went up, because she kicked off because they wouldn't give her a refund, when I went up to the dad and said she's been taken away by the police because they wouldn't give her the refund on the kettle, and he said, did she get me bet on? Okay, so this is self-portrait as pavements. The pavements inside me sing of dandelions pushing through cracks, watered with rain and the piss of roaming dogs. blown through the city air. Their pain spreads, spiky leaves protecting ants, where we ran through playgrounds and graveyards, stopping to catch our breath, sitting next to them, the dazzling dandelions, you said. We shared a bag of hot chips, your vinegar-streaked red hair, the pocketed National Health glasses you never wore, the throwaway taste of youth on our tongues from the wooden forks, the wall behind us, our vanishing floor.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. That's brilliant. A really, really lovely poem. Okay, onwards. Next up, we've got Sarah Davey, and this is a piece of creative non-fiction, which we always like in the magazine. I've always liked creative non-fiction because it does something out of the ordinary with the ordinary, and I love that. And this one in particular, I love because of the content of it. So Sarah Davey, can you make yourself known to me by speaking? There she is. Hello, lovely. Okay, let me just screen share this. The leak show. Let me introduce you properly. Sarah Davey is a writer, facilitator and lecturer living and working in rural Northumberland. Her short fiction is published online and in print, and her first short play, A Perfect Knot, was performed at Newcastle Theatre Royal in 2020. She's working on a novel which was shortlisted for the Northern Writers Awards in 2020 and 2021. Sarah is working on a full-length non-fiction project exploring rural working class life and connections to land and place. That's a fantastic topic. I'm going to let you do the reading now, Sarah, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I'm going to just make this so I can see it all right on my screen. Hopefully everyone can still see me. So this is a wee extract that I wrote. I went to an Avon non-fiction course last summer, and it was one of those proper, life-changing weeks. And this is something I worked on then, which is about village life. I'm writing a book about the village I live in, but I'm quite scared to publish it because it's about the village I live in, but we'll see. Anyway, I'll read the extract now. The Leek Show. At the far end of the main hall, a boy emerges from the kitchen. Over his right shoulder is a marrow, its swollen base broader than his head. The weight pulls him off balance and he teeters across the floor until he loses grip and the vegetable falls. Heads turn. I anticipate a smash, pulp sprayed across the parquet floor like videos I've seen of watermelons taut with elastic bands. But the mottled green and yellow skin is thick, and it survives intact. The boy pauses, then bends to roll his entry to the correct place where it is lifted ceremoniously onto the front edge of the stage. This class is too heavy for trestle tables, which run in 2 long rows down the middle of the hall. Each is covered in a white tablecloth with a scalloped edge and a well-presented section for judging. Arranged flowers, small and medium vegetables, photography, crafts from the first school. The cake table drags me over. Blush pink icing, swollen dates, gnarled walnuts and iced and dusted sponge. The air is cinnamon, lemon essence, rosewater and stale coffee. I have an urge to plunge my thumb into a glass iced sponge. Instead, I select a treacle black gingerbread, drop coins into a battered tea tin. A hand on my arm. Liz is beside me. They have to be judged first. Put it down slowly before they see. I inch the cake back, hope my fingerprints don't ruin the baker's chances. I follow Liz to the front of the hall. She nudges me to sit at a table filled with cheap wine and soap sets and tinned biscuits. The flyer for the Walken District League Club show came with the parish newsletter, followed by a reminder in the village notes section of the Hexham Courant. Long before moving to a village, I spent 2 happy summers working at Beamish Museum, where an annual league show is held in the pit village. People in high-waisted wool skirts, crisp white pinnies, heavy waistcoats and flat caps line the cottage gardens, turned over almost completely to growing. And this is how I see leeks, a mining pastime, springing from a need for air and community. Men with soot-soaked foreheads and black fingernails lean into the light on their allotments. Togetherness for a community that could be splintered in a single fall. I realised later that that cohesion is needed here too, where farming is king, and life is organised by weather and harvest and need, where tractors are snowplows in winter and land is used rather than admired. Domestic and social matters sit at the bottom of a well-worn ladder. A queue forms for the raffle, and I find myself folding rectangles of paper into smaller rectangles before dropping them into a Quality Street tin. Liz leaves for change, and I am quickly overwhelmed, giving 3 pink sheets to a squat farmer who only pays for 1. The sun drops, and light in the hall turns electric yellow. A heavy door is pushed, then bolted shut. The hum drops as a red-faced man in a checked shirt takes the stage, sits heavily on an upturned crate, and taps the microphone. I'm really surprised my voice held out because I've been ill all week. Hope you could hear me all right.
You did beautifully. You read beautifully, and I just love it. I love the way this story sort of starts out quite sweet and lovely, and then this context is built into it, and it's all sort of pulled together right at the end. It's just absolutely lovely, a lovely piece of writing. Congratulations, just fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got next Emma Jenkins, who is also going to read a piece of creative non-fiction. Emma, if you are here, can you make yourself known to me? There you are. Hi, I can see you. Hello. Hi. And again, we had actually, this is a sort of a watery-based piece of writing, and we had so much wild swimming related stuff come into the magazine this time for the autumn issue. It was actually really hard to choose between them. We've got a few different pieces in the magazine about wild swimming and water and swimming in general. So this is really nice to be able to feature something that's very high quality and just a lovely, lovely read. So I'm going to introduce Emma to you properly. Emma Jenkins is a new writer from Liverpool. She has recently completed an MA in writing at Liverpool John Moores University, during which time she was shortlisted for the Quiet Man Dave Prize. Her work is characterised by its hybrid of identities, fusing together disparate elements of memoir, fiction and philosophy in order to best reflect the fractured nature of contemporary living. Her eco-psychology writing explores the feminine paradigm shift necessary to address the climate crisis, which just sounds absolutely fascinating, doesn't it? I do love someone who is focused on their writing and can explain what their aims are. So without further ado, I'm going to let Emma do the reading for you and the speaking. Emma.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I feel honoured to be in your company as an previously unpublished writer. This is a real treat. And yeah, I feel a bit of an imposter, but here I am. Yeah, I think it took me it took me until I was in my late 30s to realise that I could undertake a career in writing, or at least attempt to write, because of, I suppose, being from a working class background and wanting to keep myself small and safe. And I've just found these wings, I suppose, and I'm enjoying taking flight with them. And it's really exciting. And I'm doing a bit of community writing. And yeah, I'm just really interested to see where this journey takes me. Now I'm on the path. So this piece I wrote at the beginning of this year. Well, yeah, it was sort of early spring. It was really cold and I was going through a really difficult time, and I went wild swimming with my cousin, who's a wild swimmer, and she thought that it would be good for me. And this kind of documents that experience. And I'm just going to read an extract from it. It's called 7 Reasons to Take Up Wild Swimming. Number 1, to feel the chatter of teeth in her head again, Cornwall, 1990. 2, to bury her body in sand again, Amalfi Coast, 1987. 3, to shock the nervous system again, Marlborough College, boarding school, 1976. 4, to make friends with the freckle on her inner thigh again, A Stranger's Bedroom Near an Elm Tree, 1996. 5, to release her white hair like coral again, Wedding Day, 1967. 6, to forget the suffering, 1951 to now, 7, to swim a different route. Near the rocks on the eastern side, we spot 2 women held waist deep, hands interlocked. The first woman is without a wedding band and has grey hair. The second has her hair covered with a Hermes scarf and may be wearing a wedding band. Invisible fish dart between legs and painted toenails. Caution is the name of the colour. A deep sage, recommended by a girl called Jolly on the makeup counter. What's left of the sea grasses caress ankles, bringing life to numb thighs, and this is as close to intimacy as they've been in 20-some years. Breath short, panting now like a border collie in a dream. They're nervous at the invitation, shy even. Their hands release, and the sun comes through the clouds in photographic flashes. Flash, dark, flash, dark, dark. A burst of light, and they're thrust into the ocean laughing. Panic disappears like vapor into the sky. Deep, slow breaths now. Salt on lips and carefree strokes of freedom. Ocean is cloud, cloud is ocean. From somewhere, seabird, seabird, fly home. From somewhere different, 2 sounds of a bell ring out, clear and loud. They manage 11 minutes because suddenly it's bitterly cold. Husbands on earlies, perhaps. I've come to know my trance of unworthiness, but a tiny moth brings my gaze quicker than usual to the horizon line. The 5-year-old in me strips to her knickers suddenly. Whoops and hollers of encouragement follow. I run into the sea, smacking the surface out of the water, leaving behind small footprints in the sand. I look back with a head of curly hair and a dirty face, as if I'm made of sea.
Was fantastic. It's so evocative and just so beautiful. Such beautiful, beautiful writing. Okay, moving on again. How wonderful is this? So over the year, we ran a poetry competition, and I am delighted that we have 2 of the winners of this poetry competition with us tonight. And the first one who came 3rd place is Diana Kant, who is there, and I can see you already, so you don't have to shout, Diana. Hi, Diana. We also have Maggie Harris here, who judged the competition, and I know she's been looking forward to hearing this read, as I have as well. And I didn't have any part in the judging. I just processed the competition entries and anonymised them and sent them. So it was really nice that the ones that won, I recognised them coming through my hands as well. When Maggie told me what she'd chosen for it, I went back and I thought, oh, I do remember that one. I do remember it when it jumped out at me as I was putting it in the envelope. So this is fantastic, and I'm so pleased to have you here tonight, Diana. I'm going to introduce you properly now. Diana Kant is a child psychotherapist with an MA in poetry from Newcastle University, the Poetry School. Her poems have been published in various anthologies, and most recently in The Alchemy Spoon and Finished Creatures. Her pamphlet, Student Bodies, 1968, was published last year by Clayhanger Press, and her second pamphlet, At Risk, The Lives Some Children Live, has been published by Dempsey and Windle, the excellent publishers. So I'm going to hand over to you now. Oh, I better screen share your poem, hadn't I? And I'm going to let you read your wonderful poem. Here we are.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Well, and thank you, Wendy, and to Steve in absentia. And thank you too to Maggie for being the judge of this and selecting my poem. I've lived in rural Kent for over 30 years now, and when I first moved here was really surprised that Kent was as rural as it is. I'd imagined suburbia, but of course in places it's not like that at all. So this poem is about the experience of being an incomer. And when I say an incomer, actually it's about moving from all of 10 miles from one rural hamlet to another, but nonetheless still being an incomer. So this is my poem, George. We met him the day we moved in, across the boundary fence, talking to the air to the left of us, gruff, suspicious of the incomers, not entirely to be trusted with the view of his backyard. Stomach bulging over leather belt, check shirt, haphazard buttons, slightly lascivious stare, a carrion fortune made by scavenging wrecked cars, the worn-out farm his wife's for generations. How did we prove ourselves? We were never sure. Perhaps it was a friend in common or a furious boundary war, settled later with smoother words. Or perhaps it was the seasons passing, a gradual growth of rural trust. Or perhaps it was just seeing us, gradually tending our small patch, doing the same ordinary tasks that mark existence, planting, mowing, mending broken fences, putting out the bins. We came to know the kindness that he carried deep inside, hidden as in a moleskin bag, dark and gentle to the touch, offered in those moments when we needed it the most. It never struck us we would miss him, thought he always would be there, at the fence, talking to the air. Now we miss his heavy tread, the moonlight weave of torchlight as he walked the fields in search of sleep. Thank you.
That's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Just such a worthy winner in the competition. I'm so pleased that I've got you here to read it because you read it so beautifully as well. So thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Next up, we've got the first place winner of the competition. Sarah Natsuganian. I had no idea. I did do all right. I was so worried about pronouncing it. Steve was going to pronounce your name for me tonight, so I'm glad I've got somewhere near it. And this is another poem. This is another one that I saw it and I just absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. It sang into me. It sang into me, this poem. It's just so beautiful. And I'm so excited that other people are going to hear you read it as well today. So I'm going to introduce you properly. Sarah Natsuganian is an Anglo-Armenian poet based in Ely, UK. Her debut pamphlet, Philosophy Revision, will be published by Against the Grain Press in spring 2022. Congratulations. Sarah's work has appeared in The North, The Rialto, Poetry News, Poetry Wales, Magma, Pennine Platform, Fenland Read, London Grip, Atrium, and many anthologies. She was a winner in the Poetry Society's Winter 2020 members competition on the theme of youth, and I can just see how you have managed to accrue all those winnings and publications because your work is so beautiful, and I can't wait to share this with you, with the group tonight. Okay.
Thank you so much, Wendy, and congratulations to Diana and to Rachel, who couldn't be here tonight, for your fantastic poems. I can't tell you what a thrill it was, Wendy. Thank you so much, and to you and to Maggie Harris for choosing the poem. It was written this summer when I was staying with my mum and dad in June, and I was walking the roads that I've walked for many, many years down there. And luckily for me, I was also doing a course with the Poetry School taught by the wonderful Paul Stevenson. If you ever get a chance, study with Paul. It was a course called Channel Hopping, and we were being encouraged to read contemporary French poetry, which is wild, I tell you. And I think there was a little bit of osmosis there into me from this poetry. And the idea was, the prompt for this particular challenge of the week was talk as you walk. So I took my phone with me on my morning walk and, feeling like an absolute idiot, talked into my phone and took the results home, transcribed, edited, and I had to just throw them to Paul because I was late. So this is pretty much what happened as a result. And it's called Somerset Soundtrack. Jack, jack, jackdaws, yak, yak everywhere. And here's a car and trailer squawking steel, stinking diesel. Ferns lick into the lane and goosegrass grapples up the hedge. Just imagine your slip-slap feet don't sound menacing to small creatures. Hear the soil drink last night's rain, breathe the fat green air until another car passes. Hello, goodbye, with a sad-eared dog in the back. Chee, chee, chee. If you could land these bird calls, life would be sweeter. 10 young ash have all died back. Where will the birds sit tomorrow? A DPD van barrels past the festival gate. It's just a restival this year. No Glasgow crowd, no music. Turn right to Cockmill, nicking, slicking downhill through dog-rosed, blackbirded, Stella-canned hedges. Pylons crickle-crackle down the valley, make ears shrink like baked snails as the buzz builds. Worthy farm sign says, "Don't shoot in these fields. There are lovely cows and even lovely people wandering everywhere." Michaelis. Lark, you're in charge of the morning, and oak trees have possession of this lane. Come down to the dark ford where midges pixelate the stream and roots have woven a bank, and there's a call to prayer from the young oaks. Baby, you can tell me the name of the singer. Listen, it says all the right things to the mosquitoes celebrating over the water as I trudge my heart hard uphill, home.
Absolutely fantastic, just absolutely fantastic. I love that poem so much. It properly sings into my heart. It's lovely, lovely.
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay, next up we've got one of our columnists, Electra Rhodes, who is somewhere. I have seen her. Electra, there she is. There she is.
Hello.
Hi, and it is lovely to have Electra with us again tonight because she is such a quality columnist. Every time she writes something for the magazine, I sit and read it and just get completely absorbed. And she's doing very, very well as well. She's just been longlisted for the Nan Shepherd Prize, which is just a phenomenal achievement. Congratulations, Elle. I'm going to introduce you properly and then I'm going to let you read your column. E. Rhodes is an archaeologist who lives in Wiltshire. She writes a mix of prose and poetry, and her work has been widely anthologized and published. She tweets as Electra Rhodes. She's had a lot of fantastic achievements as well. And if you follow her on Twitter, she is a joy to follow because she is always sharing things by other people and also sharing her own process, which is fantastic. Elle, thank you for being with us tonight.
Oh, Wendy, it's such a privilege. Wendy, I would like to also say, has just been longlisted for the Nan Shepherd Prize. So, you know, shut up already. And yes, please do follow me on Twitter, mainly because I just love following people who are writing and engaging with rural issues, nature writing, eco-poetry, all of that kind of thing. I'm going to read from most of my column, I think all of my column, because it will just about fit in the time. I always struggle reading columns straight after poetry because I think, wow, and I'm somewhere else because of the poetry. So you're going to have to come back down that lane and then start off on a different lane and stand on the edge of a field underneath some trees. So this is called Countryside, deliberately spelled with a C. It wasn't my spelling going wrong. He chews his bottom lip like it's a competitive sport, spits on the ground between us and furrows deeper into the pockets of his jeans, straitjacketing an instinct to raise his fists. Finally, he tips his chin up, muscles bunching at the corner of his jaw. Who are you? He's tired and suspicious, and I feel a burst of sympathy for him as I explain what I'd like to know. At least we have some common language. My uncle worked an estate in Lincolnshire, and I spent any number of visits to their Grace and Favour cottage, helping with the pheasants. This guy was part of something much bigger, with regular commercial shoots throughout the season. So, I start with a story from when I was younger, something that illustrates the complex questions I've brought. I was at a shoot, handing round tea when it began to rain hard. As the water puddled, I squelched between the huddled golfing umbrellas. my second-hand wellies letting in more water than they kept out. One of the guns told me to follow him. 3 pairs of boots were on parade in the back of his Land Rover, and 5 minutes later, I had clean socks and dry feet. It was still pouring an hour later when we gave it up as a bad job. I asked the gun how to return the boots, but he waved me off. I told my uncle. He had plenty of hand-me-downs with good labels and life left in them. But these were almost new, expensive, posh. He pulled on his moustache, always a shorthand for worry in our familial lexicon. "Send a thank you note," he said. The man nods in recognition. He's not enthralled to the landowner who paid his wages, but he admits a nostalgia for a golden age that never existed. "Going soft in my retirement," he says. He starts with the waste. "I hated it, and the pervasive cruelty." He turns glum, acknowledges the irony when what he's talking about is shooting for sport. "But I remember a time when the guns were interested in the estate, wanted to know about the birds, treated us as people rather than as disposable." He shrugs, admitting this might be snobbery about newcomers, keen on the style rather than the substance, something he blames on the Downton effect. But he wants people to respect the land and those who live there all the time. Now it's going bad, worse. He ticks off a list until he runs out of fingers. The pesticides, the litter, the mismanagement, the raptor poisoning, the river pollution, preserving the countryside by turning it into a wilderness theme park. The hash the government is making of agriculture, crops rotting in the fields, the housing situation, the poverty, the loss of species, the way people think that nature is out there, not in here. He taps his chest. Then he stops and shoves his fists back in his pockets. It's good the grandkids aren't interested, though their dad took on the job when I stopped. I ask what they'll do instead, and he shakes his head. "I don't know. Picking, packing, there's sod all else." He bends and pockets a spent cartridge. There are signs of wild campers and picnickers, another thing he feels conflicted about. He wants people to be here, to enjoy the woods and the fields he still walks, but he doesn't have easy answers. He dusts his hand off on the back of his jeans. The wind kicks up and I can smell wood smoke. "That everything?" I ask. It's not quite been what I expected. He looks down at my expensive boots and rubs out the gob of spit between us with the toe of his Wellington. "Yeah," he replies, "it was."
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Elle. I just absolutely love your column. I love all our columnists, but that one I particularly look forward to because it's always a really interesting take on something, and that's no exception. It's fantastic. Okay, we are on to our first guest reader, Maggie Harris, who was good enough to judge our inaugural poetry competition, and she is a writer that I've long admired and have written about on my blog before. And I'm so pleased that she's able to be here to read to you tonight. I'm going to introduce her properly with a proper introduction. Maggie Harris is a Guyanese British writer living in the UK, winner of the Poetry Wales Award 2020, the Guyana Prize for Literature, and the Caribbean winner of the Commonwealth Short Story Prize. She has taught creative writing for the University of Kent and was International Teaching Fellow at Southampton University. She has published 6 collections of poetry, 3 short story collections, and a memoir, Kiskadi Girl. Her writing is widely anthologised. She has performed her poetry internationally, most recently in Mangalore in India. Her BBC commissioned poem for Kent, Lit by Fire, on the North Foreland Lighthouse, is available to read online, and her prize-winning poem, Canterbury, is an art installation in the city's Westgate Gardens. And I'm absolutely honoured to have you here tonight, Maggie. I'm going to screen share your poems for you, and I hope I've got the layout right on the page for you. And I'm going to hand you over now to read to the people. Thank you very, very much. Maggie, are you there? Maggie?
I'm just going to unmute myself.
There she is. you've muted yourself.
How'd you come out of it? Alt plus A.
No, you're out now. You're unmuted now. No, you've muted yourself again.
Okay.
There, I can
Right.
hear you.
Am I there? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
I can hear
Sorry,
you.
I'm such a donut.
Oh, no, it's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine.
Thank you. I'm so chuffed to be here, and especially to hear all those wonderful poems that I spent reading over the summer. I took them on holiday with me, and it was so difficult, as you know, because there's so many good poems in the competition. But it's really, really great to hear them live. Really, really lovely. Okay, I'll start with a poem called Washerday Song. My grandmother was not a washerwoman per se, but a washerwoman was she. A scrubber, a beater, a paddler, a shredder, beating the clothes on a stone. And I'll run to the river for 1,000 years, just to see my grandmother there, squat on the ground where the water's brown, with a horsehair brush and a paddle, a scrubber, a beater, a paddler, a shredder, beating clothes on a stone. Run to the river to wash the clothes, wash a day, wash a day, wash a day song, sit and scrub where the water runs fast, wash a day song. Praise to the women by rivers, by creeks, by lakes, by waterholes, where alligators snatch and sandflies sting, and muscles and veins are strained to the bones of women from Benares, Soweto and Loo, worn to the weight like fishermen hauling the catch on shore. Water from the standpipe, bucket on head, wash a day, wash a day, wash a day song. Soap from ashes, soap from fat, wash a day, wash a day, wash a day song. Soak and starch and rickets blue, wash a day song. Roll on the years, my mother's town house, washing machine is king. Feeding the clothes through a mangle of names, battledore, beater, batter and bittle. Water boil on the kerosene stove, wash a day, wash a day, wash a day song. Washboard, soap sud, oil and grease, wash a day, wash a day, wash a day song. Shirt and pants and bloodstained sheets, wash a day song. Praise to the women who washed those sheets. Praise to the women who scrubbed and beat from rivers to washboards, wells and creeks, my grandmother's shoulders, my mother's arms. Wash a day, wash a day, wash a day song. Wash a day song. It's funny when you get to the age I am, you have a history, because I'm also a great grandmother. So I can actually remember my grandmother beating the clothes like that on the side of a river to come right up to the kind of modern day. You know, it's really weird. You feel like you've had a lifetime of change in your life. This poem is called Voyage in the Dark, which was the name comes from a short story from Jean Rees, Voyage in the Dark. But it's for my friend Hilary, who was part of my writing group for about 10 or 15 years. And she sadly was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and died a couple of years ago. And this is for her, Voyage in the Dark. We swim towards each other in the dark, an oily dark, buoyed by tentacles of memory that brush past our ears like feathers. Inconstant syllables linger, phrases regroup and reform. Your turquoise earrings swing in their film of silver against your cheek. Your eyes float towards me in the gloom, Elizabeth Taylor eyes. They once danced with mirth and innuendo, head tipped back for another glug of wine, poetry tossed with pancakes, metaphors mixed as salads. You can no longer make tea. Your kitchen is a place of unfamiliar things you wander with lost hands. We are marooned here. Seamus Heaney's still in the shed. Plapp and Hughes drop in, revitalize our meetings as they always did, shine a light on our constant tussle with ideas and form. Sometimes Walcott returns, like the wide Sargasso Sea, sugar and slate, that lovely Charlotte, me, those you welcome with open palms. From far away, the clock booms, another hour. This next poem is an excerpt from a longer piece about men who brutalize women, to put it in a little phrase. And it's called Werewolves, and it's from my collection, which is called After a Visit to Botanical Garden. Wearing the skin of humans, he blends into the urban landscape, drives his 4x4 through the town, laughs with the teller in the bank, strolls the golf course with the pack, all easy in disguise, coppers, surveyors, building contractors, publicans, draft bitter sliding smoothly down designer throats. Soon he will go home to that little girl in the red coat bleeding into the landscape, remembering how, even when he had thrown the stone at her retreating car, she had returned, fueled by the small face of their son framed in the upstairs window. And even when his fingered paws had scored a right almost through her cheekbone, that cheekbone which in a past life would not have looked out of place on the cover of Vogue. And even when the pounding of her size 4 feet along the midnight pavement had flicked the light switch of the neighbors. And even when the police car had purred away, reassured it was only a domestic. And even when the boy had placed himself between the knife and his mother's small frame backed up against the kitchen sink, still she returned time and time again, putting his howl right back there in the burning pit of his throat. This next one's called When Cookie Sings, and Cookie was a woman who I used when I was a child. She was just always there in the kitchen, and everybody just called her Cookie. And she must have been in her 80s or 90s. And my mum tells me now that she used to cook for the family before I was born. Anyway, she was very, very strict, and she told us off quite a lot. But when she sung this little song, she just became someone else. And it was just a lovely little kind of moment. And I did this poem in London, and there were quite a few Guyanese people in the audience. And some elderly ladies were sitting in the front. And I saw one lady actually singing the chorus along. And I thought, oh my God, you know, it was just so nice that she also was brought up with this little tiny song. I don't know where it comes from. And yeah, so anyway. It's called When Cookie Sings. When Cookie sings, the world stands still. The sun ray pauses on the sill. The dog stretched out along the step uncurls a sleepy eye. The radio dulls its news report. Somewhere a bay of pigs, a vote. My mother at the cooler stirs the coffee slow. The scrape of spoon on tin becoming liquid, losing its velocity in steam, a turbulence of spin. When Cookie sings, any children whimpering will stop mid-howl. Their ears bewitched, her singing halt the flow of tears. Pretty little butterfly, butterfly, she sings, and we forget her gums, her watery eyes, her temper weighted with the privilege of years. Pretty little butterfly, what you do all day? Flying in the garden, nothing do but play. Nothing do but play, my darling, nothing do but play. Fly, butterfly, take yourself away. When I am grown, migrated, gone to tune-filled lands and populous discordant rhythms, my mind overpopulated with the science of climate change and red admirals. There she comes, an old black woman singing in a rocking chair. Pretty little butterfly. I never knew her name. Okay, I'm going to finish with this one, which is called And the Thing Is, which I was very excited to have win this lovely competition. And it's a poem I kind of worked on quite a lot over the last year or two. It just never seemed right. You know, it was just seemed to be one of these poems that was just going off in different directions. But anyway, I think I kind of got it together in this poem. And the thing is, if there had been a Brixton in the home counties, or a Cardiff in the valleys, a Toxteth or a Chapeltown, where we could have dropped our Georgie bundles, where my mother could keep her church hat and her accent, where she didn't have to always explain where she came from, where she could have kept her doilies and her Jesus and slipped into familiar ways like others from the sun. If her laughter could have broken on back steps and carried up words to the telephone wires loud and raucous like parakeets, if carnival was not something to watch online or remember from 1969, we could have cauterized some of the wounds we acquired whilst migrating. South of the river in 1973, you couldn't get a plantain, you couldn't find an edo, saltfish or jira, sweet potato, bird pepper, callaloo. Casrip only come in somebody grip traveling back from home. When the body have to force itself to dumb down your forthright self, and your chiffon dress too flighty for the worship, when no hymns bursting, no tambourine reverberating, and the smiles of few over the pew, you are not easily identifiable. The color of your skin mystifies. Because the thing is, we didn't have no tribe. When you're half in, half out, which half to throw out is the thing. Which half can you reconcile as you watch TV? The boys them get stopped over and over, but nobody don't shove you on the bus or cross the road or move house. That is the razor blade of misconception, the shame. You have to beat yourself to belong at the extent of denying half of you, quarter of you, 2 cents of you, 5 shillings of you, from Madeira to the Ivory Coast to Edinburgh. But her Jesus come with my mother, who thanked him for all he had done, bringing her and her children out of the wilderness. Not understanding was a different kind of wilderness. While letters from home full of murder and gangster and riots, the Portuguese quarter where she born now a no-go, and even sugar you can't get even though you grew up right there next to Cane Field. Our granddaddy breaking his back for 40 years. We have to be thankful. We have to be thankful. We have to be thankful. So we swimming in a different world. And I'm not saying it all bad. The people did not massacre us with hate. No dog shit by the front door, though once I got called a white nigger. My mother got called love, found work amongst those whose hand was the color of work. Still they say, we never knew people like you grew there. 2 generations later, across a pebbled beach in Kent, broken families are walking out of the sea in wet shoes, their children and their mobile phones held high above their heads, surrendering their bodies to the Dover Patrol. In their wake, another broken trail, a human chain from places formerly known as home. Thank you.
It was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I loved it from start to finish, and you read so beautiful. It's mesmerizing. It's just wonderful. Thank you so much, Maggie, and thank you for coming along and being a part of it tonight. It's just lovely to have you here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, right, we are going to take a short break, a short 5 or 6 minute break, so you can go and refresh your glasses, go to the loo, have a little tiny screen break, and then come back at about just gone 5 past. We'll be back. Okay, everybody, thank you for being such a wonderful audience so far. Okay, if I can have everyone back, that would be fantastic for our second half of the Spelt Spectacular. There are some lovely, lovely comments in the chat, and it's so heartening to see how much people are enjoying it tonight, because I know that people are giving up their time to be here and to read, and Maggie and Caleb in particular. It's just absolutely lovely to see the feedback for the magazine as well, which is just wonderful. Thank you very, very, very much. Okay, moving on to the second half. Rachel, I can already see you, so I don't need you to shout up. Next up on the list is Rachel Burns, and I just know Rachel a little bit through Facebook and social media, so again it's really, really nice to be able to showcase somebody's work in the magazine who I'm familiar with. And you know, when we get these submissions in, we get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and I read every single one, and sometimes a name will come up and there'll be a familiar person. I'll think, oh, brilliant, oh, please let it be a really, really good submission. So it's really good when it is a really good submission, and I can say, yes, please, come and be in my magazine, our magazine, I should say. It's my magazine tonight because Steve's not here. He's missing out, unfortunately. Okay, so we've got Rachel Burns up next, and I'm going to introduce you properly, and then I shall screen share your poem. Rachel Burns lives on the outskirts of Durham City. Her debut poetry pamphlet, A Girl in a Blue Dress, is published by Vain Woman Press. She is widely published in literary magazines including The Moth, Butcher's Dog, and Ink, Sweat and Tears. Rachel was shortlisted in the Wolves Lit Poetry Competition and came second in the Julian Lennon Prize for Poetry 2021. Currently, she is a mentee on the Creative Future TLC Next Up Development Programme. How fantastic. I'm so pleased to have you here, Rachel. I really, really am.
Thank you.
Here we are. Break, 5 minutes. Reminder to self. Here we are, Rachel. I will leave you to it and scroll you through.
Okay, thank you. It's such an honour to be part of Spelt. I've really enjoyed the first half. Everyone's poems have been fantastic. I'm kind of blown away by all the poetry. So on that note, I will read mine. Parts of Flowers. We follow Sister Frances through the cloisters, past the Stations of the Cross. The scent of flowers fills the chapel. Ovary, ovule, gynoecium, death and resurrection. Your mother sends you back to your former junior school. Take your report to Sister Frances. Don't you dare come home until she's seen it. Your mother's spittle on your face like dark rain. Peonies, dahlias and petunia. Yellow star of Bethlehem. Sepal, stamen, stigma. You knock on the convent door. Sister Frances is not home. White dead nettle and dog rose, posterior and anterior lobe, vexillum, lateral, wing. You run away to Roddymoor Woods, make a bed from the branches of ash, pray until your palms sweat blood. Your father's garden has fruit canes, red currants, bitter on the tongue. The bearded man from housing reads your father's letter, to whom it may concern. Time burns slow, filament, anther, dioecious. I disown her as a daughter. Thank you.
Phenomenal poem, and just absolutely beautifully read as well, Rachel. It's so lovely. Okay. Next up, we have got Alison Brackenbury. Alison, speak. Where's your hat? There you are. I see you. Hello, Alison. Hi. Lovely to have you. And I'm particularly pleased because Alison is another poet who I admire greatly. In fact, I think you wrote one of the blurbs for my very first pamphlet, Alison.
Yes,
You did,
yes, I
you
remember
did.
it well. Lovely.
Yeah, thank you. So it was really nice to have Alison submit to the magazine, and I was like, oh yes, brilliant, brilliant. I'm so excited. So it's really nice to have you here, Alison, and thank you for reading tonight. I'm going to introduce you properly now. Alison Brackenbury has published 10 poetry collections, 10 poetry collections. Her work has won an Eric Gregory and a Cholmondeley Award and has been broadcast frequently on Radio 4. Her selected poems is Gallop, Carcanet 2019. Her latest collection, Thoughtness, will be published by Carcanet in February 2022. She's also writing a prose book, Village, about remarkable people and places in Lincolnshire and beyond, which sounds phenomenal and absolutely right up my street. So I shall share your poem to the screen and let you take it from here. Thank you, Alison.
Lovely. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yep. I'm delighted to be here. I can't resist repeating gratefully that my next collection, Thoughtness, will be out from Carcanet in February. It's crammed with poems about animals, especially birds. But this is a new one on a short fly past, especially for you. It's dedicated to a poet whose haunting poems about birds I'm sure you will know. The title is Writing to David Morley from the 132 bus. Behind dark barn, I caught the kestrel, sharp as sun, come slanting sudden over scarp, then settle by the bus stop on a post. You could have told me its long Latin name, its kin, its cry. I watched it for you, slim wings, its wild breast speckled like a thrush. The barn rears dark. Where have our thrushes gone? I took no picture, my rash spring trip done. The kestrel shoots towards you through the sun. Thank you.
Just beautiful, beautiful poem. Thank you so much, Alison. I really, really enjoyed that. Just lovely. Gosh, what a treat tonight is. Okay, next up we've got June Wetland. June, can you give me a sign that you're here? There you are, I see you waving. Lovely, lovely. And this one, oh, how fantastic, because I live in Filey, just outside Filey, and this is a poem that has Filey in it, which is brilliant. Brilliant, yay to Filey, little tiny town. Okay, I'm going to introduce you properly, June, and then I shall share the screen. I'm very tired, sorry. June lives in Wiltshire and is boundlessly proud of being a product of Hull and the East Riding. Yay! Her recently published novel, Foolish Heroines at Valley Press, yay! Was longlisted for the BPA First Novel Award 2020. She's tried to make her website, www.junewetland.com, interesting and different. Go and check it out. But can a website be too different? Amongst other magazines and anthologies, her poems have appeared in Poetry Ireland Review, Stand, Poetry Salzburg Review, Ink, Sweat and Tears. And it is an absolute delight to have you here today, June. Thank you very, very much for being here. Okay. Take it away, June.
Thank you. And I don't think I've ever had a poem presented as beautifully as this one has been presented in the magazine. It looks absolutely fantastic. I'm so pleased with it. When I was at school, I did A-level English and we did King Lear as one of the plays, and I immediately loved the play. It was one of those plays that becomes part of your own literary landscape. But growing up in Hull and the East Riding, I had no idea of the landscape that he was really wandering around in the play. So I always saw him in my own mind's eye wandering around the North York moors and at the seaside on the coast of Yorkshire. So in my head, that's where he was. And all these decades later, I finally wrote a poem about that King Lear, a sort of alternative King Lear. So it feels really exciting that that King Lear that's lived in my own head for all that time, I'm now sharing with other people. King Lear, the Filey Folio. In this account, Lear's never been south of Sheffield. So instead of on the heaths of Kent, he wanders the North York moors instead, and at the height of his insanity, rages on the sands at Filey. He lives in a shelter slaked in brine, having weathered the more turbulent years, the Butlins camp just up the shoreline. Perspective mellowed by time, a little light reading, popular science from the library, he thinks of his daughters, those two vicious bitches, and the youngest who, had she bothered to express herself less clearly, might have saved him all that misery. This folio has no reconciliation, no redemption. Medievalism has not strayed so far from the York junction of the Great North Road. There's just an old man on the beach who greets at dawn the wild boar that rise from Doggerland, an obdurate male with 3 pink sowlets, and a smaller one with 1 black ear, who never was quite born. But had she been, might have changed the fortunes of the others, and in so doing altered the whole meaning of the tale. She snouts for apples beneath the trees, while he feeds her bread softened with warm milk, the rasp of waves sucking shingle as the tide drifts in.
Fantastic. Really, really enjoyed that and beautifully read as well. Really lovely. And I do love a poem that mentions Filey as well. Brilliant. Okay, next up, we've got Lindsay Walter. Lindsay, can you give me a shout so I can find you? There you are. I see you. I see you. Okay. So this is another poem in the magazine, and oh yes, it's another one that really sang to me as well. One of those that is slightly unexpected, and one that just shouts quality and good writing. So I'm really, really pleased to have you in the magazine, Lindsay. I'm going to introduce you properly now. Over the past few years, Lindsay has written teacher training manuals, lots of flash fiction, and a children's novel. She has more recently been writing poetry. She is a Yorkshire woman who has lived in London and other places in the UK, in Switzerland and in Malta, but her mind is always full of the green valley where she grew up, with a beck running past the garden and owls calling from the woods all night long. Oh, it sounds like where I live. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you, Lindsay. You can take it away now.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you for putting me in the magazine. I'm so proud to see my poem published. This poem is actually a true story, really. It's a memory from when I was living in London and working there. And it was great, but I really missed home. I was brought up in a tiny village in North Yorkshire. And I was very homesick. And for years, I've remembered how it felt to get on the tube one day and see that poem overhead. And that's what I wanted to write about. Going home. North London, evening. The Euston Road thick with traffic. On my own, down deep into the underground. The train arrives. Doors clatter open. The crowd pushes on board. We shuffle together like crated pigeons. Among the adverts on the carriage walls, there's a poem. Oh, western wind, when wilt thou blow? The small rain down can rain. Christ, if my love were in my arms and I in my bed again. The words stay in my mind all the way. Mornington Crescent to Seven Sisters. All the way up out of the tube station, past parked cars and corner shops and other people's cooking, through the front door, into the dusty house. Home. When the wind's from the west, it's soft. It blows down the valley, across the wet fields, into the garden. The leaves of the lilac flutter and turn, shiny with rain in the light from the kitchen window. And I hear again my mother's voice, saying a poem she learned at school. It's a warm wind, the west wind, full of birds' cries. I never hear the west wind, but tears are in my eyes. Tears are in my eyes. Why go away in the first place, I ask myself, when you want so much to go back?
Oh, just beautiful. What a beautiful ending. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for being here and sharing that with us tonight. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And do remember to check the chat where people are saying lovely things about everyone who's read tonight. Okay, so next up we've got Sarah Thomas. Sarah, give us a shout so I can see where you are. There she is. I see you down there. Now then, Sarah is one of our columnists, and it's lovely, lovely, lovely to have columnists here tonight, because it's a slightly different experience to have someone writing regularly for the magazine to what we have with the creative non-fiction. So it's lovely to have that slight difference between the readers as well. So I am going to introduce Sarah, who has sent me a tiny little update. And she says, my memoir set in Iceland, The Raven's Nest, will be published in summer 2022 by Atlantic, which is fantastic. Sarah's writing career began as Penguin Books' Wayfarer, a roaming writer in residence, and continued with a PhD in creative writing. Her memoir set in Iceland, The Raven's Nest, was longlisted for the inaugural Nan Shepherd Prize and shortlisted for the 2021 Fitzcarraldo Essay Prize, and it will be published in 2022 in the summer, which is fantastic. Her work has been featured in The Guardian, Dark Mountain, Earthliness magazine, Caught by the River, and in Catherine Norbury's anthology Women on Nature. She currently inhabits the intertidal zone where Scotland and England mingle, which is just fantastic, isn't it? How wonderful. Okay. Here we go. Sarah, it is over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Yeah, that was very fresh hot off the press news. So I thought I would share it with everyone tonight. I've not even tweeted about it yet. So lovely to see you all. It's been a wonderful evening so far. Got a lot of beautiful words and images flying around my head. So I live in Galloway, which is one of many places that is caught up in the current housing crisis, and I myself have been as well. And I think with each column, there's something that bubbles to the surface that won't let me go, that sort of wants to be written about. But it was such a big topic that I did wonder how to write about it in a small space. And as is often the way, often by zooming in on something small, the universal, the in the micro is the macro, basically. So I don't have enough time to read the whole piece, but I will read you an extra.
I think you could probably read the whole piece. You've probably got time to do it if you wanted to. Don't let me change you at the last minute and put you out. Sorry?
No, that's fine. I'd love to. Yeah. I'd love to. Yeah.
I think this is the whole one that's in the magazine, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd love to. Yeah, fine. Okay. A small piece of earth. In my living room, above a wood burner, there is a mantelpiece crowded with objects, treasures I have gathered on walks or sea swims, cards and collages received from friends. I don't recall a home of mine that didn't have a mantelpiece. For me, Hearth is intrinsic to home. The objects on the mantelpiece change with every place I live, are of the place I live, and subtly shift with the seasons. Here, now, I have a chunk of amethyst and a raven skull, whelks and auger shells, limpets eroded into rings, a hardened black bead of bladderwrack, and the small chitinous pillow of escaped egg sac, a mermaid's purse, which I mysteriously untangled from my hair one morning. It was as if in my dreams I had been swimming in the sea. Each time they send something, friends ask me for my address. And this past year at least, it seems to have changed each time they ask. It is not actually my living room or my mantelpiece. That is a concept that is becoming harder to imagine each day that passes in this weird post-lockdown property bubble. In 2020, I had to move 3 times. The living room and the mantelpiece are in a rental property it took me 9 months to find. The mantelpiece is the thing that made me able to think of it as a home, a piece of elm fashioned by hand into something beautiful, around which I could imagine my own possessions. I would dearly love to buy a house so that I could become part of a place, arrange my possessions once and for all, and not keep wondering when I would next have to pack them up into boxes. This house was at least not a holiday let that I could have for a few months in off season with someone else's furniture and pictures on the wall that I may not touch. It was not a dingy studio flat in Dumfries. It was a house for long-term let in a village by the coast with a fireplace and a garden. The possibility to grow a few vegetables, to keep warm in winter and to stay put. If I could go back in time and tell the person who built this cottage in the late 1800s that in 2021, these would be some of the hardest life goals to achieve in rural Scotland, or increasingly rural anywhere, they might think my sanity had departed me. How did we get here? This has been an incremental shift since the enclosures. But in this short, strange plague time, I have watched this countryside transform from a backwater into hot real estate. Nature has been commodified now to the extent that the few places on this crowded island that have not been dug up, chopped down, or built over command their own inflated monetary value just because they are rare. The countryside is becoming a ghetto for the privileged. People with inflated means offer inflated prices to visit the area or to buy property. I wonder if tourism businesses realise that their staff also have to live somewhere that they can afford, and that is why they are in short supply. I wonder if the many retirees realise that in a few years they will need carers who will need to live somewhere, and they too will be in short supply. It is a ticking time bomb. Next to the shells and the raven skull, in the last inch of space on my mantelpiece, I have just placed a piece of lava. It is dark charcoal grey, angular and smooth like a wedge of cake iced with a rough, dark vitrification. It is from Iceland, where I used to live and had not been able to visit for 2 years until this month. There, now, a volcano is erupting, and I walked up to its edge. This piece of rock broke off from the still warm lava field. In placing this on my mantelpiece, it dawns on me that I have added to my collection some of the youngest earth on earth. Before plant succession, before even the lone golden plover I heard piping in the gloaming had excreted onto it to begin turning it into soil. Earth before designation, enclosure, exploitation, commodification. Earth just being itself. How might we have a relationship to Earth without owning it? One where we know we can stay, where it won't be taken away.
Fantastic. absolutely fantastic, and such a beautifully crafted piece of writing. Just lovely, really nice. And I love it when writers can take something that's a really serious topic, a really important topic, and make something creative out of it. That's the whole point of creative non-fiction, is just building that and bringing it to life, and that is just so beautifully done. So thank you very, very much, Sarah, and congratulations on the book. Fantastic achievement.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up we've got Mark Stewart. Mark, can you give me a shout if you're there somewhere? Mark? Now, Mark said that I think one of his children had come down with COVID, and he was hoping to be here, but I don't think he's actually made it tonight. Let me just go through everyone and just check. Sorry to be staring so intently at you all. Okay, no, I don't think Mark's actually made it tonight. So, but Mark had written a really lovely piece of creative non-fiction in the magazine, which, as you know, as I've said over and over, I am always really, really proud to have in the magazine. So it's a shame he's not here to read it. But we have come to our next guest reader instead. Caleb, where are you? There you are. Brilliant. Wonderful. Caleb is going to read from his brand new collection. We interviewed Caleb, we being me actually, interviewed Caleb in the latest issue of Spelt, and he was just an absolute joy to talk to. Really fascinating approach to writing and research for the writing, and how he goes about running workshops. I've heard so many good things about his workshops, so if you get to go on Caleb's workshops, do. He is fantastic, and he is going to share his own poem, so I don't have to worry about that, but I am going to introduce him to you, and he's going to finish off our evening for you. Caleb Parkin, Bristol City Poet 2020-22, has poems in The Rialto, The Poetry Review, Under the Radar, Poetry Wales, Magma, Butcher's Dog, The Guardian, and elsewhere. He tutors for Poetry Society, Poetry School, Cheltenham Festivals, First Story, and holds an MSc in Creative Writing for therapeutic purposes, with a research dissertation focused on museum and gallery settings. Debut pamphlet, Wasted Rainbow, Tall Lighthouse, February 2021. Debut collection, This Fruiting Body, is out now with 9 Arches Press, and it is phenomenal. So you should definitely immediately go out and buy it after you have listened to Caleb's wonderful poems. Over to you, Caleb. Thank you very, very much for being here. Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Wendy, and thank you for. I feel like especially with online readings, I go into lovely listening mode, and then in-person ones, I leap up and can expel some energy. But I'm sort of just sat, So I'm gonna expel some energy while seated. So I am going to share screen, and I'm going to share the final proofs of the book, so I can just search for the next poem. So it's all very very high tech, and I hope it will work. So bear with me 2 seconds. I will do that for you. Hopefully you can see a poem called Winged Insects at Literary Events. I thought, given that there's a lot of air moving across the landscape with the storm rolling in, that I do some airy poems and some landscape poems of different kinds. And it's interesting reading from a new book when you find your different routes through it. And every time you do a reading, it feels a little bit like arranging a new collection, because you find different links. So a couple of insect poems to start. Winged Insects at Literary Events. 1. While the poet intones gestures at that vital word, a translucent daddy longlegs zigzags along the beam of a spotlight. Contained in that diagonal column of dust, it hurtles up like a planet swallowed by an imploding star. 2. The interviewer offers significant nods, head tilted at all this heightened knowledge, while a fly lands on the bookshelf, rings its wings, fitful and ready. 3. The speaker points a laser towards their compelling ideas, slide by slide, click by click, building, cogent, persuasive. In the middle of the screen, as a huge moth rests there, its wings a mystery, a tattered cloak, its whole being a comma deleted in a thesis. And let's just check that it's actually doing the searchy thing. It is great. It's great. So a poem with a deliberately provocative title. This is called I Swallow. And we live next to the Bristol to Bath railway path. So every time I'm cycling and I swallow an insect now, I remind myself I wrote this poem and it's probably my own fault. I swallow. My cheeks, biologist's net. My tongue, grill of a muscle car. 10, 20 years past, when the bass notes bug mass clogged our vents, blotted out headlights. Why would I spit out all this nutritious life? No, I swallow, gulp every moth as though there were nothing else to eat, glug every fly, green to blue to horse, drink their bodies' monuments. In that moment, I am not only man on bike, but basking shark of air, colliding with krill, lip smack and flourish of gill full, full. I am not only biped, but also swift, tilt and cut on meadows, dart and shift for every smaller wing than this, take all of it in. I am not only mammal, but mechanical MacDonald, this bike path, my farm, EI, oh, the gluts of life, this sallow summer swirls up. He, I, oh, my happy meals, all of you for me. Every revolution of these legs, every turn of this yellow earth is just fuel, just protein, to burn in my equator, to complicate the flora in this one and only gut. So all sorts of peculiar biomechanical mergings in that. I had great fun writing it. I thought I'd share a couple of poems of walking. I love walking and I go walking really regularly, and I walk around the city in Bristol where I am, in the suburbs, and I also get out of town and walk elsewhere. Particularly on Sunday, I went to Sand Bay near Weston, which I adore as a spot. So this is about estuaries, and I love an estuary, and so many of them end with this suffix ness. But I wanted to think about them as spaces that are doctored and interfered with, as they so often are, like nuclear power plants are so often on estuaries. So much industry goes on them. And I took some kind of risks and experiments in the way that I constructed this poem using a random word generator to disrupt my normal imagery. So yeah, that's how I got here. Doctored ness. Estuary, untouchable estuary. Every such body sneezes out bridges. Lego brick cooling towers jagged through walkers' luminous socks, blue and resistant on the swollen path. Water's brackish meaning mouths over silent ridges. This bent and mottled sky. Burnt matchstick trees flicked from orbit, set down in perfect lines. Walkers' faces ogle in their hundreds. They crackle on the bank. A Nordic pole millipede. Out of touch estuary wants its flesh formally interviewed. Invites diggers. Untouched bed where worm faces churn dreams of chimney implementation. Walkers on the bank, an endless perforation. Untouched, touch, retouch estuary. Bottle flotsam correlations. Neon beacons pick at this dusk. Walkers backlit. Anonymous interviewees with their chalk membrane dogs. Guttural estuary, insatiable glottal stop estuary, unlit warehouse of stacked tidal printouts. Walkers on hands, knees, elbows, army crawl on bellies, initiate the protocol, administer the remains. So, and I hope You know, I write in a lot of different ways, and I think that so with poems like that, when I want to kind of push language to its edges and make them strange and kind of quite challenging. And I also write obviously in a very first person way, as I do in this piece, which is another poem of walking. We went to a wedding in Devon, and then there was no taxis after we went to an after party. And so we walked back in the dark, and that gave rise to this poem. Kind words about darkness. Into this living night we stride the few curving miles of hedge-meshed lanes, reliant at first on sight. But then in the secret spectral cinema of purple, black, grey, 3 a.m, away from the orange juice deluge of streetlights, we attune to touch, become alert to the crunch or slop of each step, awake to each other, the low-headed stoop of the dog. There is space in this darkness, a brightness between us and the softly backlit branches. No traffic to face down, no public to display to. Not a single tree jabs at us with censuring eyes. Just us, our hands meshing beneath this starlight. These hands scattered otherwise beneath the gazing windows of a city skyline. And I guess with that piece, as it evolved, I realized partly I was writing about walking in nature as queer people, that nature does not judge us or give us passive aggression or microaggressions. It just is, you know, Earth on its own terms. And yeah, so yeah, it came through in the editing, I guess, with that one. Something a bit sillier in a way. Well, it sort of is. A lot of what I write is sort of silly. So this piece was in the Rialto, and I wrote a whole series of these. I wrote about 8 of them, and then actually when I initially sent the manuscript to Jane at Nine Arches, they were kind of section headers, and she was like, no, like we need to lose most of them. And this was the one that really I wanted to keep. When we go walking, and you know the walkers that have cropped up in the last couple of poems, including me, we sometimes go to the outdoors stall. No specific one. I'm not going to, you know, get myself in trouble. And I went to an outdoors store with my dogs, Barney and Zoo, downstairs, and partly experiencing it through their non-human eyes. And I just realized like how weird those spaces are and how gendered and how performed. And so I was like, okay, so let's kind of see this through the lens of a kind of drag ball. If anyone doesn't know, a ball that I refer to in this, in drag culture, particularly in like Paris is Burning, and there's a TV show on Channel 4 called Legendary, which is about voguing and drag balls. A ball is a big event, and then there'd be categories, and well, in Paris is Burning, it would be about passing particular identities. So they're really political events, and it was a lot of Black and Latino, Latinx, people of color, and often trans people who are leading those events. But anyway, I've kind of invoked that regarding the outdoors store. So that's what I'm up to here when I refer to a ball. At the outdoors store. Let's strike poses at the outdoors store. Climb between the covers of the catalogue. Have a ball where the first category is his and hers, and we'll swap the postures. His sat demurely giggling in the tent porch. Hers, foot up, pioneering double knot on a convenient rock. Then let's step out from the pages, collage new ranges of his and his's, hers and herses, theirs and theirs's. Let's don waterproof boots in technicolor spots. Let's slide into cagoules in macho shades of cerise. Let's all deck head to toe in sparkly fleece. Then let's go further. Let's decide the category is tent, and we'll become breathable and temporary. We'll stride these catwalk aisles, sassily flapping our vents, our collapsible carbon fiber skeletons protruding, our Velcro mouths serious and fixed. Let's declare the category is rocks, and we'll plonk ourselves in the corners of product shots, fabulously mossy, louche boulders a la mode. We'll collaborate with waterfalls in glitter and foam. Let's declare the category is all the insects not pictured. Category is the mountain itself. Category is the lake itself. Category is the ground itself. I thought I would read you, and actually it's a continuation of this drag theme. Something I've been doing in workshops is talking about the idea of like dragging up our voices. Whenever we write as something non-human, we're kind of dragging up our voice. And sometimes a kind of nod to that in the way we do it can be quite fun, as much as it can also be really fun to fully inhabit it and kind of not try and reference it with a nod and a wink. So I guess in this poem, part of what I was doing by adopting the voice of all the shells on a beach, which is what I'm doing, I felt like it was a little bit of kind of drag because I don't know what it's like to be shells or to be a gastropod or a mollusk, really. But I want to try and find out, you know. So, yeah, this poem's partly doing that. Spiral shell. We, the dead, in constellations of mollusk clutter, scattered on this grainy nether sky of sand. For some time, we felt agreeably empty here in this pearlescent afterlife. Innumerable, smattered as cheap shell suits or storm systems. We were the houses, not the tenants. We were mantle-built homes, the 3D printed caravan masses and unhurried seabeds gastropod traffic, ancient as ammonite in Cambrian seas, fresh as ragged gaps in garden leaves. We're the gathering of moments into ages, and we spiral like the whirls behind tankers, helter-skelter at ocean's edges. We are the clarion call of the conch in a sunrise radiant as a yellow cockle. Now we've nowhere to go, dissolve into particulate futures, as you crunch across us, helixes shattered by heels, forgetting each of us is an epic. And another coastal poem, scan through all the references to chips in my book there, which there we go. So this poem came about as a commission for the National Poetry Competition. I was lucky enough to win second prize in 2016-17 competition, much to my surprise. It was the one I bunged in last minute and made weird last minute changes to. So just saying, if you've got a feeling about it, bung it in. They asked me to write a poem which was inspired by the words used only once and the most used words in the competition's history. And the two words I chose were felt and chip shop. Chip shop, all one word in the title as here. But I interpreted felt rather than feeling as in the material felt, which is kind of squished, so layered up. And because I grew up on the Essex-Suffolk border and not far from the coast, and we go quite regularly to the coast, which I love, for some reason, chip shops felt significant in that landscape, and this is what arose from that. All the chip shops I have ever been to are stacked up, a deep-fried skyscraper somewhere on the East Anglian coast. This tower of bubbling fat concealed beyond Clacton-on-Sea, Walton-on-the-Naze, cast shadows near the shibboleth of Aldborough. In the blue-black grey around Cromer's ingrown pier, an undrownable orange boy invites me in to swim. Still, enveloped food shifts across their miles of steel counter, papers shaken through with white plastic bollards of salt. The North Sea lingering in flesh, mushy peas copied and pasted until no longer green. Meanwhile, Sizewell B is a puffball on the horizon, domed as a worm moon rising, eye with no iris. In the steaming museum cases of the tower's counters, the crispy sarcophagi of battered sausages, preserved remains of cod. Body after body dredged up in silver cages, hundreds of pucker pies in their capsized foil crowns. At Dunwich Heath, the oyster catchers are on strike. Curlews are threatening to straighten their beaks. The tower wavers like seaweed, shimmers, a candle, its unknown postcode defined by the scent of second-hand oil slicked through wardrobes. Chips in the toes of socks, fish bones catching at collars. In each of those chip shops, the radio plays the creak of a sign, rush of a wave, then static. Okay, so very short couple of poems to conclude, which are both kind of urban nature poems in a way. I'm going to do them in this order because it'll be easier, even though I wanted to finish on this one really, but I'll read you this one, then the other one, which is a City Poet Commission. This one is the penultimate poem in the book. It was written as part of Wild Correspondings with Kind and Kind, who then produced this wonderful book, which I really recommend if you're interested in eco-poetry. It's a source book for eco-writing. And it's a Blackthorn Madrigal, which is a particular form. And I went for a slightly drunk walk, if I'm honest. So here we go. Oberon Avenue, a Blackthorn Madrigal. Sozzled in drizzle, I amble the suburbs, seek out under things, map gaps, mesh, mess, red dash of tail, almost another fox poem. Across the rolling blocks of this city, the green between moulders like mortar. In thistle, nettle, a hiss underfoot, something bottled, hydraulic, a body's worth of clothes slung over branches, a dark tunnel of tent. Across the rolling blocks of this city, the green between moulders like mortar. I was going to do another, but I think I'm going to leave it there because it's such a nice place to leave it, isn't it, with the green between.
Well, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. There's so many nice comments in the chat. Go and have a look at them before I disappear us all. But one of the things that kept coming up is how much people like the playfulness of your work. And I think that's really important to have that in poetry, in the poetry community. And you are doing such a good job. Your book is phenomenal, and I hope it absolutely flies because it really, really deserves it. And here we are at the end of the evening. We made it all the way through, and haven't we had a treat? Some fantastic poets, some fantastic columnists, fantastic creative nonfiction, and our two brilliant guest speakers, Maggie Harris and Caleb Parkin, who you should look up and go and find their work and buy their work. So if you can all unmute yourselves just for a minute, and we'll have a round of applause to our contributors and our guest speakers, and just say thank you very, very much. It's been absolutely brilliant. I've really, really enjoyed it. You've made it really special for me. And Spelt is now officially launched and out in the world. I still have this Black Friday deal going where you can buy issue 2 and issue 3 for just £11, and it would make it a lovely gift to someone if you wanted to give Spelt magazine. Also, we have subscriptions. Again, that would make a brilliant Christmas gift to someone. Buy a subscription for Christmas. Spelt is run on a shoestring, and we claw money in from these tiny little things, the workshops, the subscriptions, so that we can keep this magazine going, keep it full colour, keep presenting the poems and the creative non-fiction and the columnists and the interviews and the prompts in this way that we do it, which we think is really, really special. We think we want to do more with this magazine and grow it, because we think there's an underrepresentation of rural writing, real rural writing, and the rural experience in the poetry community. So thank you for coming, and thank you for supporting us. And I hope we'll see you again soon at another event. Take care, everybody. I'm going to have a big glass of wine now. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.